This weekend, the Des Moines Professional Firefighters hosted the Fire Ops 101 event. And the Fire Ops 101 event is a event that was in conjunction with the Council of Midwest legislators that was in town, still in town. And we run them through some fire scenarios, some of the things that we do, real life. We had a burn simulator, we had a maze, search and rescue maze, we had a vehicle extrication scenario, and then we had a cardiac arrest scenario. We allowed each of these legislatures to be paired up with firefighters from Des Moines, as well as other places in Iowa, and we run them through this, give them the opportunity to participate, ask questions, just kind of get a feel for what we do. And Des Moines City Councilwoman Linda Westergaard participated with us, and I hope she enjoyed herself. I hope we weren't too hard on you.
You were great.
Joe, up here are some pictures of Linda.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, there she is right here.
Yep. So she went through everything. She went through the vehicle extrication. She's coming out of the burn simulator there. That's our EMS drill, which was a cardiac arrest scenario. And like I said, it was a warm day, but I think we had fun, and I hope you learned a little bit and picked up some stuff. But the International Association of Firefighters sponsors this, and they put this on, and they, through volunteers from our department as well as all over the state, interacted with these people and kind of just gave them an idea of what it is we do. And they wanted to present an award, and it's in recognition of your dedication to educating public officials about firefighters and thereby creating the pathway for a safe and efficient and effective emergency response system in your community. And Councilman Coleman was there to accept the award yesterday. But he suggested we come and do this here, and I think that's a great idea. So on behalf of the International Association of Firefighters, we want to present that to the city. And then because Mayor County went through, and he's always given me a hard time about he didn't get a Des Moines helmet, we wanted to make sure that we presented it. So we wanted to present him with his own Fire Ops 101 Local 4 Iowa Professional Firefighters Des Moines helmet. So. Wear it proudly, put it in your office, whatever, but we appreciate it.
You gonna put it on?
No, I thought maybe you would.
No, it's Mayor.
Des Moines Fire Ops.
That's it. I'm not scheduled to say anything here, and maybe Linda wants to say something also, but I'll tell you, it gives you a real sense of what our men and women in Des Moines Fire and Rescue go through. It's just for half a day. We're out there, we're doing stuff. You see the scenarios, or at least some of them that they are confronted with on a sometimes daily basis. And it really gives you an appreciation for why we have these people working and dedicating a career to public safety, and how much it means to each and every one of us. So I want to thank our firefighters and our Des Moines Police Department and everybody that's connected to our public safety. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, and from the whole City Council and all the citizens of the City of Des Moines. Our appreciation goes out to you.
That it was an experience unlike anything I have ever had before, and I came away with such a deep appreciation and respect for the firefighters. It was 90 degrees yesterday. I think I had 65 pounds of stuff on me. I mean, it was hot out there, and I just can't even imagine what it would be like to be in a burning building and have it be that temperature, or to be where it's 20 below and you're fighting and you're slipping on ice, and it's just an incredible job that these people do. So I thank them, and I'm glad that I live in a city that has such a wonderful fire department and police department. Thank you.
Oh, one more picture, Joe.
You can see she was so we're gonna have you hold the I'll show everybody that says Des Moines. I talked to Joe about it. If I'd have known it. Just go down and stand around with Coleman.
Thanks, Joe.
Such an awesome venue. It's great about the downtown venue. It's probably one of the best venues they said.
Does this go over here?
Where was it actually at downtown?
It was on 7th between Locust and Grand, right next to Marriott. The conference is at the Marriott, so.
Oh,
it's
okay.
extremely convenient.
Oh, nice.
Excellent.
Linda,
I'll leave that with
can you get a helmet?
Diane. Will take it.
You got to do the course.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
See, you got reelected president.
Yes.
All right, let's call our meeting to, well, before we call it to order, I'm going to turn it over to our own council member, Joe Gatto. And Joe, for a message, you want us to stand? Or?
Sure, we can stand.
All right, so those who participate, we'd ask you to stand at this time. Councilmember Gatto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for what you've given to us and the freedom that we have here in our great country. Just be with us. Help us make great decisions that we can make for our citizens. Help us get along with each other and be respectful to each other. In your name we pray. Amen.
Diane, do you have an extra? All right, we'll call the meeting to order, and I'll ask clerk to please take roll.
County,
Here.
Coleman,
Here.
Moore,
Here.
Gray,
Here.
Westergaard,
Here.
Hensley. Here. Gatto.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, our second item on the agenda is to approve the agenda as presented and/or as amended.
Move.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Item 3 is approving the consent agenda tonight. Those are items 3 through 36. These are all routine items, and they are enacted on one roll call vote unless somebody, either from the Des Moines City Council or a member of the audience, has to have one pulled for further consideration or clarification. This evening, item 4V, Councilmember Gray wishes to speak. Item 5, Councilmembers County and Moore vote no. Item 22, Coleman, Hensley, and Moore all wish to speak. Item 25, Councilmember Coleman wishes to speak. And item, is this 26, Mrs. Hensley?
Yes.
Okay, 26 and 29, Mrs. Hensley wishes to speak. Are there any other items? Again, items 3 through 36 that anyone would like to pull for additional discussion? Seeing none, could we have a motion,
Move.
please? It's been moved. And if everyone would make a vote?
7 yes.
All right. Item 4V. Item 4 is licenses and permits, approving alcoholic beverage license applications for the following. And V, in this case, is the Beaverdale Betterment at 4900 Hickman. They are asking for a 5-day license, a special C liquor license, beer wine for the Bluegrass Festival on July 22nd of 17. Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to give a shout out. This has been a community option that we've had in Beaverdale probably for about the last 10 years. We've done it as a street party on Beaver Avenue down by Sheraton and Beaver Crest, and transitioned to Beaverdale Park a few years ago. Last year was the first year we held it at Tower Park, and attendance went from between 300 and 500 to, I believe, Chris, 1,500 we saw. And it was a very warm evening, but they had a beautiful stage set up right in front of the water tower at Tower Park. There was people could bring lawn chairs or just sit on the sloping grass. There were food trucks there, cold beverages. It's quite a sight. 1,500 people on a Saturday afternoon. So I'm going to encourage anybody, if you're out in the neighborhood, that Saturday, that'd be July 22nd, please stop by and you'll be in for a treat of your life. So I'd like to move item 4V.
You didn't mention the two handsome bartenders that worked midway through the afternoon.
Got to keep that one under the radar.
You guys don't know how to bartend.
That's why I have to bring in the pros.
7 yes.
All right. Item 22. Item 22 is approving a reprogramming and carry over the prior year's unspent community development block grant funds and other funds for the 2017 HUD Consolidated Plan Programs, Council Communication number 17-530. I don't know. Let's start down here. You want to start?
Sure. I just wanted to point out there's been a lot of attention lately to the need for demolition of houses in the city of Des Moines. And if we pass this tonight, this will enable us to remove approximately 38 of the 68 structures that are on the list. And people need to understand that you've got to be patient. We moved this on July 28th of 2014, directing manager and staff to work with the NFC, Polk County Housing Trust, and Greater Des Moines Habitat for Humanity on a strategy to seek additional funding for demolitions or to create incentives for rehab of these properties. And tonight, some of that's on here. A lot of the demolition is on here. And there was just an article in the paper on Sunday in which they suggested we can do more. Well, we are doing more. We've been working at it. It's been almost 2 weeks shy of 3 years since we started working on this. And our staff and this city council will continue to look for funds for the demo of houses that need to be demoed. And I will assure you that the NFC and Habitat for Humanity are taking a look at these houses before they're demoed to see if they want to take them on and rehab them themselves. So if they get to the point of demolition, they are to the point where there's no rehab of these houses whatsoever. And with that, I'm going to move this.
All right.
Turn it over to
Mrs. Hensley, anything?
Okay, I would just like to add, this is a significant step for the city. It's 1.168 million. And my question would be, I'm extremely pleased that we're allocating the CDBG unspent funds. But once we have vacant lots, because there will be a timeline there. And one of the concerns we have in some neighborhoods is where we have vacant lots and then they're not kept up and maintenance becomes an issue. So how are we going to handle maintenance of those vacant lots as we're going through the process to make them available to potential developers? Do we have a plan in place? Because there will be a lot of them in certain neighborhoods.
Right, and so I think you hit it right that the first and foremost is to get these properties back into generating private property taxes, essentially. So that we'll be looking for partners first and foremost to get these redeveloped. But for the time frame when they're down and there's maintenance, it is a general fund expense, and we do have funds set aside. We will have to look at what future year budgets may need as the volume may increase. But we won't know that until we understand how many of these properties our partners are going to be able to take on quickly in a private way.
So how long do we think the process will take from the time, are we going to wait and bundle them together so that we have 7, 8 properties at one time within a certain neighborhood, and then those will be RFP'd out to nonprofits and other?
Where that is available, that will be the case, where we have an opportunity to aggregate several properties into one process. Okay. But these will be scattered throughout. And so I don't want the expectation to be that all of them will be disposed in blocks per se. Some of these will be, quite frankly, some of these will be opportunities for neighbors as well, depending on the size of the lots.
Thank you.
Mr. Coleman.
Similar comments to what's already been made, so I'll make them briefly, but there has been a lot of attention to the degree of commitment and activity in our neighborhoods on poor housing stock. And I didn't know anybody else was going to pull this off. I'm glad that you did, because I do want our citizens to know that we're serious about it. This is money that when I first came onto the council, probably we would have had an argument about which charities or nonprofits to distribute this money to. And over the last generation, we've slowly focused these dollars on the most important issues in our neighborhoods. And so I'm really proud of this. And for those that read the newspaper and all that, it's really good that we have the attention on those issues, and it's fair. I'm not complaining at all, but this is part of the solution to those issues as we talk about what we're doing in the neighborhoods. Instead of putting this money in anywhere else, we're putting it out there trying to clean up our neighborhoods. I also pulled off item 25, and I'll just make my comments right now, Mayor, if I can, because it's in the same line. Here's another $100,000 that we're putting into the neighborhoods to help low-income people have a fund where they can borrow money to do minor repairs on their houses, trying to keep low-income elderly people included in their homes where they're secure and where they've lived. And this is a program on 25, again, investing in our neighborhoods, in the housing stock of our neighborhoods, and I think it's important. So I think, Skip, you already moved 22.
Yes, I did.
And if I could just add to 25, because I think there's another important piece to this, is the fact that every year we have to ask for an extension on the money that we receive for that program. And that's because I believe not many citizens realize that it's available to them. So we need to figure out how to get that word out, whether it's through City Source or some other mechanisms, because we never seem to be able to spend it, which I find hard to believe.
Yeah.
7 yes.
All right, and Mr. Coleman, if you'd want to move 25.
I will move 25. Thank you, Mayor.
Seven yes.
All right, item 26, First Amendment to the Urban Renewal Agreement for the sale of land for the private redevelopment with Fifth and Walnut Parking LLC regarding the sale and redevelopment of the Fifth and Walnut Parking Garage at 422 Walnut Street. Council Communication number 17-527. Mrs. Hensley.
I would like to make a motion that we continue this item. We are looking tentatively, if it works out, that we would move it to our work session, have just a quick special meeting on the 17th to take action on this, because there have been a couple of new pieces of information that we just need to have further discussion on, and rather than rushing it and not doing a good job, we'd like to take the week to have staff work with the developer and bring it forward on the 17th.
Anybody in the audience have an issue with that? Okay. All right, we have a motion.
That is, yeah.
Sorry.
Mr. Coleman.
Didn't vote yet. 7 yes.
All right, I think that takes us to 29. 29 is a donation agreement with Greater Des Moines Community Foundation regarding resetting of monuments in Woodland Cemetery. Council Communication number 17-523.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a project that we've been working on and working with legal and Parks and Recreation staff to get this in place. As you know, we have Woodland Cemetery, which is a historic cemetery, but has a lot of tombstone issues over the years, and you have no family members that are remaining to take care of the tombstones. So we have a very generous sponsor. Buzz Brenton has come forward, and we're working with city staff that there would be matching funds that would come from city staff to actually set the tombstones upright. I just want to make it clear that we understand legally that it's not the city's responsibility, and that's why we've got this public-private partnership, and we've worked out a mechanism, a process that allows us to do it. As a result of that, we also have, I guess let me just back up. We don't see this being an every year issue. I know from the city manager's perspective, there's some concern about that. But the willingness of the private sector has really far exceeded what we originally expected. So the monies coming in are much greater, and which is a positive. The other item is, because of this donation, we have a large group of almost 300 interns that are working for various corporations during the summer months that have selected this as a project to actually wash the tombstones within the park, within the cemetery, and there will be other park projects. If all 300 of them show up, it's way too many just to do at Woodland, but it's a wonderful private project that's moving forward and is gaining momentum. So a lot of pieces coming together.
Real quick, can I just jump in, Mr. Mayor?
Sure, absolutely.
Kind of piggyback on, we work with the Parks Department. Her and I have raising a lot of money with the McCray Park, with this, other different things that the Parks Department has raised a lot of money without a position that I think still hasn't been filled for grant writers. So I think that we need to hats off to them for the work that they've done in the Parks Department of being able to form that private-public partnership, and what a great job that they've done.
Thank you.
So I'm happy to move 29, and congratulations and thank you to all the different departments that came together to figure out how to make this work. Thank you.
Seven yes.
All right, that completes the consent agenda, and let's move on to ordinances final consideration. This one is amending number 37, amending Chapter 60 of the Municipal Code regarding the real estate contract sales inspections as amended. Council Communication number 17-529. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this item? Is this the only individual that wants to speak on this? There's two, there's three. All right. I think probably we've heard from a couple of these folks before, but how many minutes, folks? 3 each? Okay. You're on.
Overhead.
Ooh.
Okay. Hey, Mayor, I'd also like maybe a couple more minutes. I've been through this. It's 3 pages long, and I really have to talk fast to do it. So if there's allowable time, I'd like to have another minute or so.
All right, give us your name and address to start with so that we can keep it on the record.
Yeah. My name is Alan Suby. Address is 422 Southwest Westview Drive, Ankeny, Iowa. I have 4 rental properties in Des Moines. I have a rental property in Ankeny and other places. I grew up in Fertile, Iowa. The former governor knows where Fertile, Iowa is. Taught school at Belmont, Iowa, and I've been in the greater Des Moines area for about 45 years.
And we hope the former governor remembers where Des Moines is. So go ahead.
I know. Okay, so anyway, about 2 weeks ago we met with Sue Donovan and others here too. And at the end of with our session, I have a lot different attitude about this article than I had before. What Sue said is that we're really trying to provide information for the buyer. That's what we're trying to do, so that he or she can make an intelligent decision about whether to buy the house. Okay, and so I'll go fast here. Okay, here's what I thought Sue said to me. The city needs to develop a procedure whereby it can legally deal with those large-scale contract sellers who tend to abuse the innocent and the uninformed. Okay, that was what I got from why this all happened. Okay, and then she said, what we're not trying to do a bunch of gotchas here, but we're trying to get people to a point where when they buy something that they know what they're buying and they're not getting taken, if that's a good term. The city will provide a service, can you read that? A service rather than a citation. City will provide guidance rather than gotchas. City officials will play the role as coaches rather than officials. The city will provide more information and less confrontation. You always think when you deal with the city that the gotcha and you're stuck. Okay, some of the areas involved in safety will need immediate attention before occupancy may include. Now, if the building is really not safe and it's unhealthy, then that makes sense to me. Nobody should be living it. And here are some of the things that we talked about: fire alarms, mold, cockroaches, lead-based paint, bare electrical wires, rusted out chimney pipes, and asbestos. That makes sense to me, that nobody should buy a house and live in it if it's got those characteristics. Okay, this is page 2 of page 3. The city will provide information about the property. Buyer beware, but decision to immediately fix or not fix will be made by the contract sale buyer and may include such areas as, okay, cracked sidewalks, old but functional furnace, rotted or cracked driveways, water heater. And permitting has always been an issue with me too. Okay, somebody installed the hot water heater, it doesn't have a permit. So are we going to make a big issue of that, or we're going to say, no, let's let it go? Functional 60 amp water service, or 60 amp electrical services, they do work. They're not the best, but you can get by on 60 amps. Functional but wet vented sinks or drains, they work. Garage wired and Romex, there's a ton of them around and they don't catch fire. Curled but not leaking 2-layer shingles. The city will allow new contract sale homeowners with the homestead exemption the ability to acquire permits. So you bought it on contract, you can go down to the city and pull your own permit to do the repairs. The city will provide counseling and information sessions that will include buyer and seller interaction. Now that sounds pretty good because you get the folks together and you know, and just to say a little bit about Sue, things have changed since she's been running this place, I can tell you that. Inspectors are not out to get you, they're trying to work with you and you know, make it happen. I have to tell you this, that inspections are good. It's like,
Sir, take about 10 I'm here. The mayor had to step away. Take about 10 seconds more to wrap up.
Okay, well, here's, okay, I'm sorry. So here are the things that bother me a little bit, and it's a negative side too, and I apologize for this. But one thing in here where it says they should allow inspectors to re-inspect. I don't think you can do that because you're selling a seller that he's got to give away his firstborn if he wants to sell his house. I don't think that's legal. The city will inspect both of them. There'll be both private and a public, and a private and a city inspector. I don't know that that's right. Now this one here, an exception was added this last week, and I don't know if that's good that you want to do an exception. If you own or occupy your house, then you don't have to go through this. Most of the houses that are below normal are owner occupied. And so I don't know if you want to encourage that because what I'm understanding is inspections are not a bad thing, and it's a service that Des Moines can provide to the potential buyer. So I don't know if that should be an exception. Okay, then the last one that I really shudder about, because I don't think we're going to do that, is you're going to hold up the property so that it can't be transferred. And so I think I feel that I can trust what's going to happen, and I feel that we're going to be better because of it. And I feel there won't be a lot of gotchas, and things will go through smoothly. Thank you, and thank you for
all right, Alan, thank you.
Thank you. A few extra minutes.
Next.
My name's Tim Coonan, 5200 Harwood. I'm with the Davis Brown Law Firm representing the Contract Exchange Corporation. And I'd like to echo what the gentleman said earlier about working with Sue Ann through this process. Been very collaborative. Had a lot of meetings. This proposed ordinance, I think, surfaced in March. February-March timeframe, so we've had a lot of time to work on it. However, we do still have some concerns with the ordinance as proposed, and I'm not going to go into the details such as before since we've been through it now, only to say this. There are, like in any industry, like in any market, good actors and bad actors, and I truly believe that the City Council and its staff are trying to get at the bad actors who contribute greatly to the poor housing stock in some of our worst neighborhoods. That's what we're all trying to do that, including the Contract Exchange Corporation. We are, I'm proud to say, not one of those large-scale contract sale companies who does badly or wrong by their partners they work with and their customers, the buyers of these homes. It is in our best interest for the housing stock to improve because those are homes we can buy and then turn over easier because they're already up to a standard, and we wouldn't be putting the money into that, and we'd be able to pass that along to those buyers. So many people, you wouldn't believe, are contract homeowners, first time, second time. It's how people get their start. It's how a lot of our immigrant community gets its start. It's a lot of people who fall on hard times or bad debt or a bankruptcy or a divorce situation. That's how they get back on their feet. And we've seen these stories and this played themselves out here in this room time and again on this issue. We would ask that we still work on these issues. We think we're getting close. A lot of good progress has been made, but I think there's more work to be done, because I don't think it's properly incentivizing the good actors and then properly also hurting the bad actors. In fact, I've learned more about the bad actors in the Des Moines Register in the last month than I ever knew. We all know the name. We know who they are. If that's who we're trying to get at, let's target this ordinance at the people you know are causing the bulk of the problems in these communities where these dilapidated homes exist. I appreciate your time on this, and I appreciate the city council and staff time on this, and I look forward to working with you further. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Mayor and City Council, Andrew Lietzo with the Iowa Landlord Association and the Iowa Real Estate Investors Association. And I would concur with the two other gentlemen that spoke that we have engaged in extensive conversation and even some planning with Sue Ann Donovan to try to anticipate what the impact of this ordinance would be, what kind of an effect it might have on the people who are the contract purchasers. And we as an association have basically two issues. One is that there is potentially an equal protection clause violation of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, because you're focusing just on the contract sale and not on the rental properties or the owner-occupied. Sue Ann assured us that she would like to get back to the owner-occupieds, but right now it just looks like it's focused on that small group. And then there's also a potential issue we're concerned about would be called disparate impact. The parties that would be injured by this ordinance tend to be the poor, they tend to be people who cannot obtain a mortgage, and they tend to be people who are the small investors, who we tend to work with. Now, I know there are bad actors. They tend not to be our members, and so I'm speaking for the good actors. So I hope we would consider maybe continuing this into a couple more weeks or even a month, because once it's implemented, people will be expected to follow this ordinance. And it really should be something that could hold up in court, and that would be the conclusion. So, that I have.
Question.
Andrew, thank you. Ms. Hensley?
Question for the speaker. I'm having a hard time understanding what would be accomplished if we continue the dialogue.
Well, we really don't want to be an adversary. We want to work closely with the city. We realize there are issues, as Tim just pointed out, and it's all over the newspapers that there are bad actors. Most of our members are not those, and we try to train our people how to properly transfer property and bring it up to code if it's rental property. But this is addressing an area that the city has never addressed before. Inserting yourself into the middle of a contract sale between an owner-occupant potentially and an owner-occupant buyer is brand new.
But what specifically would you put in the ordinance that's not there today? That's what I'm trying to get at, which I'm having a hard time understanding what you're requesting as to, if you took the ordinance today and put it on the blackboard.
We're requesting that basically the ordinance as it is on the books today asks for a private inspector to furnish to the buyer at least 14 days before the contract sale is concluded a thorough property inspection report. What this ordinance does is it causes the city to become involved as a second inspector, hiring, directly hiring the city of Des Moines Neighborhood Inspection Division to represent one of the parties in what is otherwise a private transaction between two parties. So we're concerned that what level of representation does the city intend to have in this transaction? Is it just basically to make sure it could potentially be approved for owner or for rental code? Or why are we using a city employed individual to do this? Because for 17 years, as I understand it, has been approved to have a private inspector do this inspection.
Okay.
Now we want to change it. So I guess now you want to change it and have the city become involved, and it's almost as though you're having a fiduciary responsibility to one of the parties, who would be the buyer. I mean, if you look at the first paragraph of this ordinance, it talked about protecting the buyer's interests. Well, is the city really prepared to represent the buyer? Because what happened to the seller who's been a taxpayer for a long time? So that's what I'm saying is, we're just kind of concerned, is there balance? Because if the transaction blows up, somebody will become an injured party.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I know that the article has been referenced twice, and I need to make a statement about the article. There was two companies that was mentioned in that article. One was Elite LLC, and the other one was EPC LLC. Those two companies did great things for neighborhoods, and the neighborhood association president has written a letter to Lee Rood about both of these companies. They have invested a great deal of money and increased the value of these neighborhoods, and for them to be put into the same bracket as kind of the bad actors, you know, I just needed to say that publicly. I don't know if the article will be rewritten in any way, but I know that we've referenced it twice, but those two companies should not have been in that article.
Joe, I had a chance to see the letter from the Pioneer Park Neighborhood Association president, and it was pretty compelling, the list of things that
they did a lot.
One or two of those contractors had done in the neighborhood, so I'm glad you pointed that out.
And they've worked with Sue Ann and I, sat down at the table and did the things to help the neighborhood and not tear it down. So those are the people that we want to be landlords in our city and do the right things, and some of the bad actors.
Sue Ann, if you would, I'd like to have you quickly come up, and we've seen some printed material put in front of us this evening, and maybe if you could kind of flesh out what the purpose of this is. I mean, for me, it's been a public safety issue on and off. I mean, we have new properties, new construction inspected. They have to meet a certain level of code, whether it be for electric or plumbing or some of the other issues. And it's hard to not have some level of compassion for buyers. And I would agree that probably there's an awful lot of these sales that are easy to look at, but they have to, the idea here, I think, is to meet certain safety standards for city code. And I'm not sure that a private inspector has the same look on the deal as we do from a public safety issue, but that's my opinion. Sue Ann.
Mayor, Council, Sue Ann Donovan, Neighborhood Inspection Zoning Administrator. Couple things. They talk about level playing field and disparate impact. I would say that if you start with an ordinance that treats everybody the same, those that comply with the ordinance are going to be fine. They're going to set themselves apart. We won't be spending time on them. They will weed themselves out, and we will be dealing with the quote-unquote bad actors. I think if you take an ordinance and you start to exempt out certain people because you've set up a certain criteria that they shouldn't adhere to, you allow them a niche where they don't have to comply with anything. They're not pulling permits, and they're not bringing them up to code, and we don't even get a chance to look at them. So I think the best way to do enforcement, from my opinion, is you pass an ordinance that everybody plays the same, just like the landlord-tenant ordinance, although we're not dealing with landlord-tenants, we're dealing with contract buyers. But everybody gets treated the same. Those that comply raise to the surface, and we don't bother them. So if particular companies are worried about this, they can rise to the level where they are self-inspecting, and we don't have to deal with it. As a part of the compromise, we said, okay, you want to use outside inspectors to go in first, that's fine, we can deal with that. Do your outside inspector, we'll review the paperwork. If there's something in there that's glaring and it's a code violation under the contract sales inspection criteria, we will go in, double look at it, make sure it's really a violation, and then we'll issue a notice. But we won't be going out on 100% of these, because they're going to be coming in with their own outside sales inspection, which is going to cover a lot more than what's required for repairs in the contract sales inspection ordinance. So the buyer's going to get a really good idea of what the aging out of the furnace is going to be and that type of thing in that document. But then we're going to look if it says open wiring, reverse polarity, the backflow siphon, whatever, that's a safety issue, then we're going to go in, verify it, send a notice, and work with the buyer and seller to come up with a renovation agreement. We're not trying to insert ourselves into the price of the contract. We're not trying to insert ourselves into the interest rate or the long-term, how long the term of the contract is. We're just saying these things need to be fixed by somebody. You can do it through a renovation agreement. You can do it through an escrow account, repair escrow account that you all set up as part of your deal. And then that's the drawdown that fixes the broken furnace or fixes the electric wiring or whatever it is. So then we have that degree of compliance. They wanted us to exempt sales where the owner is the occupant and is refinancing through a contract sale that we don't go inside. We said, okay, we won't go inside. But to ease us toward the exterior property maintenance code, we'll do the exterior of the property. We'll make sure the envelope's there. We'll make sure that the roof isn't going to leak, that we don't have broken windows, that we don't have some sort of an exterior property maintenance compliance problem. I don't know what else can be brought to the table that doesn't water this down so far that we're almost worse off than we are with the ordinance that we currently have. If you don't go forward, and yes, we're into new territory, but we often do ordinances that go into new territory to protect our citizens. This is a step in the right direction to go toward owner-occupied exterior property maintenance code. This is a way to stabilize the neighborhoods. If you let one company say, okay, we aren't going to have, and that's what they presented to us, we don't want any inspections at all and we don't want any compliance. We want to be totally exempt. They create this market for themselves. We don't go in on it. I mean, what does that get us in the long run? I don't think it gets us where we want to go. Continuing this at this point, I'm not sure. It's up to you, obviously. I don't know. I'm not sure what else they can bring to the table that doesn't water this down to the point where we're not going forward.
Thanks, Joanne. Anybody have any questions? Anybody?
No questions, comments, but no questions.
I got a question.
Oh, and then
Swan, so you're saying that you don't think there's anything more on your side that you're willing to give on? That
I'm not saying there isn't things that we can give on, but we haven't seen anything else brought to the table that makes this a stronger ordinance and not a weaker ordinance. We've had 3 or 4 meetings. We've had continuances. We've had discussions. They're not coming forward with anything that I think staff can look at and say, this is going to strengthen this and not weaken it even further than we have in our current ordinance, as a matter of fact. So it's up to you to continue it one more time for one more, and I'm willing to have another meeting and discuss it further. They haven't come up with anything that's concrete that we can look at that strengthens our movement forward.
Linda?
My comment is that I think that there's been an incredible amount of work done on city staff's part, and my dealings have been with Contract Exchange just being that kind of go-between. They would send an email and then I would send it on to fellow council people and to the city staff. So there's been a lot of work that has gone into this. Good. We're at our 3rd reading. As much as I am hesitant to push that yes button, I think that we should pass it on the condition that we can keep looking at this. I think that there's still a lot of information that we need to gather. And so if the council decides to move forward and approve the final reading, can we put something in there that says we're going to have a workshop, we're going to have an update from city staff in 6 months? I don't know if that's enough time to give us an idea. Can we have our conversations with some of the contract holders and see how it's working with them, and then be willing to come back? I don't want anybody to go out of business because of this. I just think that it's important that we all continue to work together.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Just a comment. I know that Sue Ann and the staff has worked tremendously hard on this in many meetings. And I mean, if she's going to stand here and say that nothing new has came to the table, I think we should act on it now. Now, it's something new, and I agree with Councilmember Westergaard. You know, let's have a workshop in a year. Let's have it come back, give us an update on how it's going, and let's move forward with it now. And we'll make changes if we need to in a year, or come back and, you know, we'll say that it's a good program or fix anything that's broken. But I think moving item 37 is what I'd like to do now.
Okay, a motion?
Yes, that would be my motion, with the coming back in a year to.
A year or 6 months.
Could we amend that and come and at least revisit it in 6 months just to get an update?
Sure.
I'd like to hear from everybody as to how it's going.
From the effective date?
Yeah, from the effective date.
Okay.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay.
Seven yes.
All right. It is 5:15. We have completed most of our communications reports, but I think we're required to move straight to hearings. It's after 5 o'clock, so we will open our hearings with item 40, and again at 5:15. On the conveyance of an easement for overhead and underground electric lines located within Waveland Golf Course to Mid-American Energy for $2,220. Council Communication number 17-536. We open up the hearing. Is there anybody here to speak on this item?
Seeing none, I'll move item 40.
All right, we'll close the hearing. The item's been moved.
Seven yes.
Item 41, items regarding 3212 Merle Hay Road, 5801 Hickman Road, and 2315 59th Street, and to continue to July 24th, 2017 at 5 p.m. We'll quickly open the hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on that item? Again, the motion here is to continue to July 24th.
Seeing none, Mayor, I'm going to move item 41 to continue.
Ms. Coleman.
Seven yes.
Item 42, on a request from Mesa Ridge South Ridge Mall LLC for the approval of the 32nd Amendment to the South Ridge Mall C4 Development Plan for a property in the vicinity of 1111 East Army Post Road to allow a 15.78 acre parcel to be used for multifamily and residential dwellings and office use, and to allow a 19,111 square foot expansion of the existing retail education use for Des Moines Area Community College within the main mall building, subject to revisions to the plan amendment. Is there anyone in the audience to speak to this item regarding Southridge Mall?
I see none, Mr. Mayor. I see Mr. McMurray here representing the Matridge and Coppola family, and you know, this has been a long time coming. We worked pretty hard on this, and happy to get it moving. We'll move item 42.
All right, item 42 has been moved, and hearing is closed. Skip.
Seven yes.
Item 43, regarding a petition to establish the Sherman Hill Self-Supported Municipal Improvement District, SMID, and to continue the hearing until August 14th of 2017 at 5 p.m. There's Council Communication number 17-533. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to this item? Again, the motion is going to continue till August 14th.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move this item to continue it to August 14th, but I'll also make a statement. This is the second time we've dealt with a SMID that we had to continue because of a third-party error on we might want to check with the mail house and make sure that they understand the potential problems, because we did this on Roosevelt Cultural District as well. Sorry, go ahead.
Thanks.
Sean Bound. I live in Sherman Hill, 651 20th Street. Just a couple comments. I guess number one was kind of surprising to receive a certified letter in the mail about the proposal. That was the first I've heard of it. I've lived in the neighborhood about 15 years, so don't regularly attend the neighborhood meetings. But again, I thought it was kind of a somewhat of a poor way to learn of the petition and the plan. Secondly, well, I'm not opposed to some of the plan benefits or possibly what they're looking to do with the money that would be raised. I think we're kind of overshooting the levies here. It's an 18-year levy plan, starting out at $1.50 per thousand, but increasing to $3.50 by the time the 18-year proposal will be out. Knowing what my home is currently assessed at, and mine is probably a little bit on the high end of homes, but not necessarily. I'm probably more middle of the road. I'd be looking at a $400 a year tax increase in the first year, and in the last year, it would be almost $1,000. Again, I think we're overshooting the request as far as the amounts go. And just thinking about a resale value of a home, trying to sell a home with that type of tax levy with an 18-year plan plus a 5-year renewal at the city's, the city's able to do that on their own afterwards. I think we're kind of going too far here with what we're asking for in a tax increase.
Can I just respond? Since we're not taking any official action tonight, we're actually continuing it till August 14th. I would like to point out Mr. Porter in the audience. He's just raised his hand, and I would suggest that you sit down with Mr. Porter, and maybe he can give you more information on that, because he's been leading the charge on the SMID reauthorization. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Again,
and then I'd be happy to follow up with you afterwards.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
One other question for you. I noticed that you mentioned that you didn't think the certified letter was a great way to find out that this was going to happen. Do you have a suggestion as to a better way to notify not only you, but other residents down there who may have similar?
No, I mean, first of all, when I receive a certified letter from the city, it's not always good news. It's usually in reference to
Do you
something.
receive frequent letters like that?
Well, in my neighborhood, sometimes, yes. It's. I guess I felt like, again, we're a diverse neighborhood. A lot of different. We have homes owned by the owner. We have lots of rental properties. We have commercial as well. Being a homeowner, maybe again, I'm not very active in the neighborhood meetings, but possibly another notice before this came up before the board might have helped from the group before it actually was presented to the city council. As I read the letter and I saw that it was already recommended, and I understand this is just we're still a little ways away from a formal vote. That kind of concerned me a little bit. And just speaking to some of my neighbors around me, they were also somewhat uninformed of what was coming up.
I wonder if the neighborhood association, do they have your phone number? I mean, maybe they could call you and say, hey, here's something that's would that help?
Sure, yep, absolutely.
All right,
I'll go ahead and I'll speak with Jack after the.
That'd be great.
So, okay, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, again, to continue to August 14th.
Continue and also have discussion just to revisit the independent third party that does the mailings.
Okay.
Oh.
7 yes.
All right. Sir?
You voted?
Yep.
I thought it was being...
No, we're voting to continue the hearing. The hearing will actually be on the 14th of August.
I just wanted a few words. My name is Art Stetches. I live at 704 19th Street.
Well, let's quickly, Council, do we want to reopen this and let this gentleman?
I'll make a motion to reconsider it. I guess I'd ask legal, though. We're getting, I think, closely going by. We're actually going into the hearing now, which is...
The interesting thing that you have here is this is a motion to continue to allow additional notice to be provided. So, I mean, this would be similar to the case of a set hearing where somebody comments, but if they really want their comments to be part of the official record, they need to come back or submit it.
I'll try to come back.
In terms of the hearing.
But I've been here since 3:30. I'd like to at least be able...
I'll make a motion to reconsider the item.
I just got a notice of this after sitting in here for over an hour. So.
Okay.
Yes, I made a motion to reconsider.
Do we need to have a
Voice vote?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we're going to reopen it. One of the important things, I think, for everybody, when we announce these items, we felt like we had one speaker over here that was ready. Hopefully, everybody's watching the agenda as we move along. So, you know, when the item comes up, we hate to have to get back into reopening these. We could be here a long time if we do that. So it's open, you're up.
I'll be short. Art Stutch is 704 19th Street, and this is concerning the Sherman Hill Association. I echo everything that the previous speaker said. My first notification of this was in a letter, registered letter from the city, and I was shocked. I read through the letter, not being able to believe what was in it. We have been paying extra for lighting for 18 years. I'm on a fixed income now. I'm retired, and this year I got notification the water company is increasing 15%. The electric company is increasing 15%. The property taxes for my area is increasing 15%, either by valuation or by millage, and then this is on top of that, and the $3.50 additional millage doesn't come at the end of the 18 years. It comes at about 8 years or 10 years, and then it continues on for the rest of the 18 years, and that can be extended by the city without any more ado. I do not. I think Des Moines is already considered fairly high in the tax range for this area. And I do not want to be a party of asking you to increase my taxes even more. And that doesn't even get into the handling of the monies that we've compiled up to now. I'd like to know how much there is in that we would be giving to the annexed area. There's questions that I have that I hope to come back for in August, but just in case.
I'm not
going to live forever.
Strongly encourage you, Art, to sit down with Mr. Porter. There is a annual financial statement that comes out that shows how all of the money has been spent and what the budgets are, and Mr. Porter has all of that.
I know where he lives.
Very good. And I'd be happy to join if you want, so.
All right, and just for your notes, Art, the city's increase on the levy is 0.7 of 1% increase, so it's not 1%. So the 14.3 is coming from other whatevers.
I heard 15% overall for millage and increased valuations, but I don't know where I heard that.
Well, that could be, but I want to give you the factual information in terms of what that is, only to the levy. In terms of what's the value of your property, I had property down there years ago that was not valued as high. Unfortunately, I'm one of those people that boosted it up, and I put an awful lot of money into it, and I was proud to be part of it, and I think it's turned into a great neighborhood, and I want to thank you and everybody else that's worked hard on it for the last decades.
I know where you live. I mean, I know where your house was, and you were 3 doors down from me, and I like the neighborhood too. I hope I can still live there.
Me too. Thanks, Art. All right.
Again, I'll move 43 to continue till the August 14th.
Hit your button one more time. 7 yes.
Okay, item 44, on the 2017 traffic signal repairs and East Grand Complete Street conversion solution, approving the plan specifications and form of contract documents, the engineer's estimate, and designating the lowest responsible bidder as Iowa Signal, Inc., Wayne Leslie, President, $341,662.69. Council Communication number 17-534A. Under that is approving the contract and the bond and permission to sublet. We'll go ahead and open the hearing on this. Is there anyone here to speak?
I see none, Mr. Mayor. I'll move 44 and 44A.
All right. We'll close the hearing.
Fighting over it. I do have a question of the manager that's kind of related to this on East Grand. They've got the East Pier in now on the river for the Grand Avenue Bridge. Do we have an estimated timeline for that bridge being open now?
I can provide that. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay, because I thought it'd kind of coincide with the East Grand.
Yeah, it's supposed to.
Thank you.
7 yes.
All right, I think not only the East Grand, as Skip has pointed out, it'd be good to get it all open, and it's going to be quite an improvement, I hope.
It should be beautiful.
Looking nice.
So, number 45, on the Parks Restroom Facilities, resolution approving the plan, specifications, form of contract documents, engineer's estimate, and designating the lowest responsible bidder as Edge Commercial LLC. Jason Soretti is the partner, $107,240. Council Communication number 17-537. A is approving the contract and the bond and permission to sublet. Is there anyone in the audience? We'll open the hearing who would like to speak on this item. Parks Restroom Facilities.
No one is going to come forward and say, why do we need restrooms in the parks? I'm really happy we're doing this, Mr. Page and Mr. Sanders and everybody. I appreciate it. I will move the construction of a new restroom on the southeast side.
We appreciate that. Thank you. Folks of Ward 4 and the citizens of Des Moines, thank you for that, Mr. Coleman, for your suggestion.
Joe.
I did. Oh.
Sometimes
7
it
yes.
doesn't pick it up. All right, it's 5:31. That closes the hearings. That takes us back to item 38. These are council requests. This is a request from Air County Council Members Hensley and Westergaard to discuss the fireworks pilot program. There is a under that is from D'Artagnan Brown of 2723 Columbia Street to speak regarding the impact of fireworks legalization. B, from Karen Markley of 2525 Grandview Avenue to speak regarding fireworks. And C, from Ramona Fiscus of 3103 East 43rd Court to speak regarding banning of fireworks. The only thing that I will say to this, I know that we're going to have a discussion and get an update as we promised everybody when this was moved forward in August. But I got to tell you, I have never received so many calls and emails on any issue. And I thought that while it's fresh in our mind and with a couple of other council members getting similar calls, that we probably ought to at least hear from the public who very frequently contacted us over this issue over the past few weeks. So we'll go ahead and I'll ask anybody else if they have any comments, especially Ms. Hensley and Ms. Westergaard, and then we'll open it up for D'Artagnan and Karen and Ramona.
I guess I'd like to hear from the citizenry, and then I've got some comments I'd like to make. And I think the police chief also might have information that he was going to share.
I would like to do the same.
Okay. D'Artagnan? Sir, you are up.
Uh-oh, he's coming with his guitar. There's going to be music.
Do you want me to hold your camera?
And we should acknowledge that we're
to hold the
lucky to have
camera from up
Mr.
here?
Brown back in Des Moines.
Absolutely.
His camera?
And I have to admit, D'Artagnan, that to everybody here, I've known D'Artagnan over 50 years. So thank you, D'Artagnan.
Thank you very much, Council, ladies and gentlemen. My name is D'Artagnan Brown. I live at 2723 Columbia. This is Paula Egan. And as some of you know, I've made my career out of making a lot of noise, a lot of high decibel noise over the last several decades. But today, it is not about noise. It's the fireworks issue for us is a matter of public safety. And as you know, I don't have a problem with loud, but I do have a problem with our public safety. And what we witnessed this last week was fairly serious. What we witnessed was minors being placed, that is, little kids being placed in a lot of danger. And because of ill-advised fireworks use, we see property damage that happened in our house. If it hadn't been for my garden hose, this place wouldn't exist anymore, and possibly not our place either, about 4 blocks from Grandview College. We almost lost our independence on Independence Day. The 4 engines and 2 police cars were also pulled out of service on a very chaotic night, as I don't need to tell anybody, to handle this situation. I think at this point, instead of being angry and all that, it's really about solutions. And I think a portion of the tax dollars that are collected from the sales of all of this should possibly be earmarked for a public safety campaign. And I realize this was imposed on all of us by the state. This wasn't the city of Des Moines making this legal. So I think a public service campaign, again, partially funded by tax, would help people understand that the size of certain ordinance and also paying respect to our communities. That is the veterans, the people who have been victims of gun violence, are immigrants, especially those who come from the war-torn countries around the world. I work in schools a lot, got a lot of kids from South Sudan, Syria, et cetera, et cetera. And I imagine most of them have gone through hell through this. So anyway, I think another thing about the people say when they're against the fireworks, or they talk about just the fireworks calls to the police. I think we monitored pretty much the whole evening, and besides the calls for fireworks, there's a lot of calls for domestic violence that kicked off that evening, and also a lot of sneak thieves who decided they'd use the noise and confusion to try to get in somebody else's back window and make off with something. We monitored police radio a lot of the night, and there was a great many calls on that order. I'm sure our local police, who we love, they would avoid these kind of nights if they could, because it was crazy. Our solution is, since this Des Moines is a compassionate city, this is our hometown, that again, we have a lot of creative professionals here who would love to come together and put together a creative campaign to get all of us to respect each other, to understand the safety aspects. The Science Center could be involved, the local authorities, of course, health professionals. I think going at this from as an opportunity, if they're going to be legal, if Des Moines doesn't do like Davenport, and if it's going to remain legal, then a public safety campaign is something that I think could be actually really positive for all of us in the community. So that's kind of, oh, one last thing. I expect for somebody with a big field out here in Des Moines, there's probably a multi-thousand-dollar opportunity for someone to be able to take the kind of ordinance that we saw in our in our yards, take them out to a place where they can pay and have their little space and have the best time ever, and keep that kind of ordinance out of our neighborhoods where houses are typically around 15 feet apart. So, that's
D'Artagnan, just one thing, not only for you but for everybody else. Anybody who thinks that the city of Des Moines got $1 worth of tax out of this, we did not. What we're hopeful of, to your point, and I think as Mr. Gatto pointed out early on, the state kind of imposed this on us, and we would hope that they would in fact spend some of those dollars and send them to cities like Des Moines, who had really an inordinate number of worried citizens as a result of what happened.
So there you go.
But there wasn't much so a lot of people think that I even had somebody show up here that said they were going to go buy them outside of Des Moines because they didn't like how we were handling it. And so, but the fact of the matter is we wouldn't have gotten a dime of it anyway.
Well, the right to own fireworks is not the right to instill fear and loathing in our neighbors.
Yep.
Thank you.
D'Artagnan, thank you.
Thank you.
Karen. Is Karen here? Yes. There she is. Hey, Joe, we didn't notice your friend who was here to view our city
I was waiting
council.
until the end.
He slipped out.
He must have had to go.
Thank you for hearing me tonight. My husband has TPSD. He was in Vietnam. He was in Mortar City, which is they had to hit the ditches all the time while they got mortared all the time. And I'm here because I watched him go through the same thing he did in Vietnam in our living room because of the booming and the banging all the way around us, the stress factor. He was pacing the house. He didn't know what to do. He was just beside himself. I had to increase his meds to get him to calm down. He finally went in and laid down on the bed with a pillow over his head, trying to kill out that noise level for him. I think if you're going to do this again, you really need to go to the Veterans Hospital. You need to talk to them, find out from them what all this booming and banging does to these vets. How many vets they probably had come in because of all of this. Kids that just are getting back had to be very hard on them. My husband's been out of Vietnam for a long time, but with him being in Mortar City, it was, they had to hide in the ditches and it just went off. You hoped it didn't go off in the ditch you were in. And that's what it felt to him that night. I've never seen him react to any of this before, but it was terrible, and I do not want him to go through that again. Besides the fact that what it does to the animals. My dogs were like beside themselves. Besides taking care of him, I had the dogs. I finally got some stuff to give them that quieted them down. But it was, imagine how many dogs are outside that people don't do anything for them, any pets. They're outside. My nephew was out, went out to take care of his cattle. Somebody shot off one of them big noisy fireworks. They stampeded. He had to jump into a feeder to keep from getting run over by all these cattle. I mean, these are the things that we have not thought about when we said we're going to do the fireworks. And it has a lot of repercussions on different people and different lives. And I enjoy fireworks. I enjoy them a lot. Before they became legal, I really enjoyed them. When they came out this last time, I did not enjoy them. There was too many of them. We felt like we were in World War III. Just boom, 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 all the way around us. There was no getting away from it. And they went on till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. There was no break. We just constantly was bombarded and that. And it's too bad we have these idiots that can't obey the law and stop when they're supposed to. They keep on going. And it's the loud ones. It's not just these little fireworks. It's the loud ones that's going off that causes the problem. So, and then on top of that, the next day, I have asthma and COPD. I couldn't go out. The air quality was so bad. The smoke was so bad in the air, I could not go outside. I had to stay in until the air was cleared, and that was the next day before I could go out of the house because of the smoke quality and that. I didn't want to risk it. I just came back from Tucson, staying down there in the dry desert, trying to dry my lungs out. I certainly didn't want to go back out there and complicate my problems all over again. So those are just some of the things that I felt that was bad with this. It was hard on a lot of things, a lot of people, and I know that my husband went through a lot. I don't want to have him go through that again. It was horrible to see, and I don't want to see him have to go through that again. And if he went through it, think of the young guys that have just come back. I mean, this had to have been tremendous on them too. So if you go to the VA and talk to any of them there, they would tell you how bad it was, how many they admitted, how many have gone to the centers just to get away from this and just get themselves balanced back out again in that. And that was one of the things that I wanted to stress, because I did was very worried about my husband with this, even though he's on medicine and that. And those were my points, and I feel that they're very important to what's going on, and I'm hoping that you'll vote no on the next one and bring our fireworks back to where they were reality and where they were, where we enjoy them again. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Karen.
you. Thank you, Karen.
Ramona.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm honored to be able to speak to you today, and I thank you for the opportunity. My name is Ramona Fiscus. I live at 3103 East 43rd Court. I've been in Des Moines my entire life, 67 years old, and I have to say that in all of those years I have never been passionate enough to speak before a body like this. But on this subject, I am here. I have never ever encountered a virtual war zone in my neighborhood as was experienced this July 4th of 2017. The firecrackers and rockets began on the afternoon of Sunday, July 2nd. By the afternoon of Monday, July 3rd, the bombings, and I emphasize bombings, began and continued nonstop. They were continuous, they were relentless. These bombs were deafening. The explosions literally rattled the windows of our home. After nearly 7 hours of a constant battle, I couldn't take it anymore. So at 12:30 a.m. on Tuesday, July 4th, I did the sensible thing, and I called the Des Moines PD. After all, the laws were being broken, but my complaint was a disappointment, I felt not taken seriously. The dispatcher informed me that, in essence, the police had better things to do than to respond to fireworks complaints. The dispatcher reminded me that there are robberies, stabbings, and domestics to deal with. So my question to you is this: what is the point of passing a law that you cannot enforce? As a civil society, we are supposed to promote safety and the well-being of its citizens. And that is your job, and that is what we elected you to do. But by deliberately allowing individuals to infringe upon my rights as a citizen to a peaceful existence is wrong. To allow people to break the law, to allow them to steal my peace because our city does not have the manpower to enforce the law, makes no sense. To pass a law that you know full well cannot be enforced and will negatively impact the peaceful existence of a society for the almighty buck, and I appreciate your comments about the city did not receive $1 from this. So I really don't know where the money goes.
State.
Okay, but it lacks sound judgment, and I believe is actually immoral. I have heard the argument that regulating fireworks is a safety measure for the citizens of Iowa. And I believe that argument has fallen flat on its merits. So at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, what good thing was accomplished by passing a law that allows for the purchase of fireworks in the state of Iowa? What good thing was accomplished? I, for one, find no good thing. This is the reality. You have many angry citizens who are taxpayers and voters. We were left with filthy air. Air so bad that an air quality alert was implemented. We were left with no safety net from our law enforcement agency. So what have we learned from this failed experiment? Sadly, we learned that we have people in our city who have proven that they cannot be trusted to use common sense, that they cannot be trusted to obey the law, and that they demonstrate no regard or respect for their neighbors. Therefore, Mr. Mayor and council members, I respectfully propose to this body that the law allowing for the purchase of and for the use of fireworks be reversed and banned immediately. One really has to question whether the rocket's red glare and the bombs bursting through air throughout our city last week were performed with a purely patriotic message. Thank you.
Very well said.
Those are the citizens that had registered to speak. I guess I would quickly ask if anybody else wanted to say anything else. Well, we could, but I think we're getting sort of the gist of it. Well, Council, Minute,
That's
2
fine.
minutes each?
Couple minutes.
Okay, come on up. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, come on up, hurry up. We're going to give everybody 2 minutes.
This is the guy.
You might want to remind him that we can't stop the purchase of fireworks. You might want to remind him of that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
you're right. What's that?
You might want to remind
We
him
got
that we
nothing to
can't
do with
stop
that.
the purchase of fireworks.
Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Valerie Madison. I live at 2716 Sampson, within 200 feet of a nursing home, number one. The individual that we have the main problem with in our street, he's a renter, so he's not a property owner. And I observed him and his probably 8-year-old and a child in a diaper, which I would assume were under 18. So that's 3 of
Hope
the
so,
rules.
yeah.
That tossing firecrackers. For once, I did not see him boozing like he usually does. I laid my letter out here. I'm submitting it to you tonight. I did not call the police because I felt they had more things, important things to do. I appreciate your comment, though. But one thing I did highlight in my note here is you talk about the vets, you talk about the animals. I couldn't breathe. I had to close my windows. Now, what's interesting is one of my neighbors finally admitted to me, and she was born in Germany. It's this paragraph. Before World War II occurred. And she told me the fireworks bother her. She finally admitted it. We're talking, what, 80 years old? Thank you. But I appreciate what you have tried to do. Please try harder. And I will be up at the Capitol as I was from January 20th on till they left, protesting about every darn thing that they passed this year. And this was the hottest issue that I was up there complaining about. And my senator and representative will be getting a copy of this. Please try harder. Thank you.
Thanks, Valerie.
Thank you, Valerie.
Hello, I'm Lynn Sorensen, 3412 Franklin Avenue. I live in the Beaverdale neighborhood, and I'd like to address a lot of my comments to you, Alderman Gatto, because you're the person who suggested this ordinance. There were, as the police and everybody I think here knows, there were thousands of violations of the Des Moines ordinance allowing the use of fireworks. We had personal injury, we had lost sleep, we had stress for pets and wildlife, and a diminished quality of life. And those of you who might think that the economic growth, that this somehow created jobs for people, I can tell you that the risks far outweighed any economic growth. Now, the unwanted noise that people have already talked about, you probably don't realize why it's so bad. When you go to Principal Park, you have a wide open field in which for the air and the sound to dissipate. Those of us who have studied sound realize that what you have in a very congested area is noise that is actually personified because it echoes off of houses and buildings. This ear-splitting noise pollution went on till 2 a.m. I live in Beaverdale, a nice neighborhood. It went on, Joe Gatto, for 4 nights. Now, the standard noise level set by the Department of Environmental and Natural Resources for the ambient environment is 60 decibels during the daytime and 50 decibels at night. Fireworks exceeds 140 decibels. And I'm wondering why.
Go ahead.
I'm listening.
Alderman Gatto, I'm wondering why the city would even think of passing a pilot program which exceeds what the national standards are. That's my first question for you, but you're going to get a nice list of these questions. I have a pet therapy dog, a German Shepherd, who goes to the vet's hospitals. This is what he looks like. This is his badge. I'd like to have you take a look at this.
You can put it on the.
German Shepherd that.
Do you care if we
Why don't
show the
you
whole
put it on
audience?
the-
I'll help you.
yeah. It's a German Shepherd from Germany.
Glenn, if you would, we'd ask you to try to wrap it
I'll
up
try
here.
to make this very short. He goes to the vet's hospital, so
We know how bad it is over there. This is a training program that goes on for a long period of time. In addition to that, every Wednesday he goes down, we take pet therapy dogs for the employees downtown to walk with, as well as the kids from the homeless shelter. I don't know if all of you know, there's a homeless shelter for kids. It's the Iowa Opportunity Center. They open 14 beds for homeless people between the ages of 17 and 21. We take the pet therapy dogs down there for them to get a nice little break and also for the employees to walk with pet therapy dogs. Tuesday night was the 4th of July. Wednesday, he's been going down there every year for 3 years. Now, my German Shepherd can handle a lot of things. He can handle gun noises and all of that. But this, for 4 days, put him on high alert. He was up and down all night for 4 days. Now, there's also a high property risk. I pay almost $10,000 in real estate property taxes. Do I need to show this to you first, or do I have to show this to everybody else?
Just put it right on top of that picture.
Okay. This is one of the rental properties that I own in Beaverdale. I follow all the laws, 5 building permits, etc. And in the property that we have there, I called the insurance company to ask them if I had damage to any of my properties due to fireworks, would my insurance policies cover it? And Alderman Joe Gatto, do you know what the insurance agent told me?
I'm sure you're going to tell me.
No, did you ever bother to check out what the insurance risks are for property owners prior to you suggesting this wonderful ordinance?
There's 44 other states that it's legal in.
Well,
and we only
about
suggested to make it legal for 6 hours. So the other 4 days that you're speaking of, it was illegal in the city of Des Moines. It was only legal from the hours of 4 to 10 on the 4th of July.
During the hours of 4 and 10, let's say that a firecracker hits a person's house, and you already saw the pictures of the damage. I called my insurance company. I asked them specifically, does any damage from the fireworks cover it? And you know what his answer was? I can't tell you a definitive answer, he said, because it is not specifically written in any of our insurance policies.
And
in
I would
other
take
words,
they will probably cover it.
No, but you don't know that. Maybe you know more than what Nationwide Insurance knows.
Then I would like to have you complete your statement because you're running way over.
I think that it's very important that you know what you have insurance coverage and the risk that you're asking property owners to take. The environmental impact, I think, has been very well already elaborated on. The air quality was terrible. I am respectfully asking that you ban the use of fireworks in Des Moines. I would like to see which alderman can come forward and suggest an ordinance so that it can be voted on. I'd like to see fireworks banned. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Yes, sir.
My name is Chris Flannery. I live at 2907 Capitol over by the fairgrounds. I didn't really know what to say once I stepped up here. There was a lot of things that very, very angered me. I am a veteran. I served this country to be able to shoot fireworks when I want to. But you guys are telling me when and when I can't have fun. And now I've got other folks. Yes, it is uncomfortable for them. But it's just as uncomfortable for me to not be able to do what I want to do. I served this country to be able to do things. Land of the free, home of the brave, only as long as city council says so. And if my neighbor's pissed off, then they can't do it either. I'm very, very angry about this. I'm on the side of leave it alone. Let the people shoot them. If they're doing it illegally, like Mr. Gatto said, it's illegal. Go to the people that are illegal, that are doing it illegal, not the people that are doing it responsibly and respectfully. That's all I got. Thank you.
Council members, James Townsend, 3838 54th Street here in Des Moines. I've been living in Iowa for about 15 years. Prior to that, I lived in the state of Wyoming. That's where I grew up. I can tell you for a fact that I have never been in a community that complains so much about noise-related items. Whether it's traffic horns, whether it's the railroad people, whatever it may be, it seems like we constantly are fighting about how to reduce noise in our neighborhoods. I think the issue here for a lot of the citizens that had a lot of concerns around the fireworks, not one of them did I ever hear say that they talked to their neighbors or invited their neighbors over and had a discussion about their concerns or the frustration they were having with them shooting off fireworks. And I think that's the issue. You're relying on the city council to create rules and to enforce things when, as a neighbor, you should actually just go and talk to your neighbor. You should have a beer with them or a Diet Coke or an iced tea, whatever it is, and actually just talk to them about your concerns. I am very appreciative that we were able to allow fireworks in our city. What I think was the mistake is actually limiting the period of time. I think what you saw was so many people that actually followed the rules and shot them off during that legal time. I mean, they only had such a short window. It's no wonder we did have air quality issues. Had they been given a longer time to actually shoot off those fireworks legally, I think you would have seen some of that dissipate over the course of the days. I'd be really interested to see, I think Waukee allowed them for a longer period of time. So I'd be interested to see how the city of Waukee residents kind of handled that process. So my recommendation to the city is that this was a pilot program, and I think you should continue to allow fireworks in the city, but I think you should relook at the timing and to Mr. Dardania, who first spoke about public safety and having some public safety awareness, I think should be done as well. So, thank you.
All right. Mr. Townsend, thanks. Yes, sir.
Jeremiah Tierhark. Just have a few brief comments. I'm the owner of Iowa Fireworks Company, had 21 locations all over the state. D'Artagnan, I wanted to respond to you. I definitely agree with your comments related to public safety. We initiated a campaign on our own to communicate safety and use policies with every sale. I would also note to Mayor County, I've got a copy of the bill pulled up in front of me. There are grant provisions in the bill for safety awareness, for education for the communities. Since Des Moines is by and far the largest community in our state, we should definitely be applying for those grants that have been created by the state for with the sales tax revenue to be allotted to it. Sounds like, as you noted, it was minors who set fire to the house, and it's very unfortunate. Sounds like there were some rules that were broken there. In all of the complaints, it sounds like there was rules that were broken. They were used either outside of the windows that were allotted or by people that fireworks are for adults. It's a regulated product, just like alcohol. Alcohol results in a lot of police calls every year, especially when it's abused. Karen, related to animals, veterans, and cattle. I brought along my dog, my 4 kids. We all enjoyed fireworks on the 4th. Several of our stands were run by veterans groups. I know that there's strong opinions on both sides. Our cows were fine. I'm a 4th generation farm kid. Our cows were just fine. We raised a lot of money for veterans groups as well. We encourage everyone to follow the rules, be conscientious of their neighbors. Also, Mayor County, I would note sales tax revenue. It was significant within the state for sales. While it might not be, I realize Des Moines doesn't have a local option sales tax, but it does come back to the city and sales tax revenue for schools, for DHS, and for other uses. I realize there's quite a few people here today that have strong opinions. I would say that we had over 30,000 customers that felt otherwise. So we generated over 100 new work opportunities, raised over 6 figures for nonprofits, generated significant sales tax revenue. Main complaints we received were from businesses in Missouri that were upset about Iowa keeping the revenue this year. Thank you.
My name is Brian Kraber. I'm at 678 46th Street in Des Moines, and I guess Jeremiah and some of the folks here did a pretty good job of explaining what I wanted to explain myself, so I'll probably skip over most of what they said, but I do want to echo a few things, like Jeremiah said, with public safety being an important issue with Iowa Fireworks Company, and I think it says a lot about the company that they took it upon themselves to educate people at their tents, their customers, on safety tips and the laws and the usage, where you can and cannot use the fireworks. And so I guess being a Des Moines resident, it didn't rub me the right way, knowing that Des Moines, we couldn't set up a tent in Des Moines because of the regulations around setting up a tent in Des Moines. So we had zero opportunity to educate Des Moines customers on where you can light them off, where you cannot light them off, and the times you can use them. We had zero opportunity to educate anyone in Des Moines from our tents with safety tips. We were told that you've got to abide by, I think they had to have, was it the tents that had to be taken down every night in the city of Des Moines, which is unrealistic. These tents are professionally erected and staked down with concrete. And so we didn't have those opportunities here in Des Moines to educate our customers, but in other areas we did, like Pleasantville, Newton, Alleman, Nevada. Speaking of the Nevada tent, we had veterans run that tent for us, and in return, we donated a portion of our proceeds to a veterans academy, a military academy. And Waterloo, one of our tents there, was ran by entirely ran by veterans, and the proceeds from that tent, a large portion of the proceeds from that tent, went to a halfway home for veterans. And so, given the opportunity, a lot of these veterans jumped at the chance to raise money for their organizations and foundations. You okay, Mayor?
Yeah.
Okay. We're getting them water here.
You're okay.
He's got some. It's just air pollution.
So, and I guess to jump to the laws being broken on when people can light them off, I think that a lot of people weren't lighting them off at the right times, probably mostly because fireworks are best displayed at night. Lighting them off at 5 o'clock in the evening is not the ideal time to light them off. And I think expanding the window of time that I, as a consumer, can light the fireworks off would benefit the community. And I think that's my time buzzer there. I appreciate you guys letting us come up and speak, and we really hope that you'll expand the usage for next year. Thank you.
Brian, what's the name of your business again?
Iowa Fireworks Company.
Iowa Fireworks. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name's Tim Coonan, 5200 Harwood Drive, with Davis Brown Law Firm, representing T&T Fireworks. And as you are aware, we do differ with your interpretation on part of the law that passed. However, we don't differ on the opinion that you have the absolute authority to regulate use. I think you were prescient in setting a workshop in August, knowing that this would cause, maybe, I don't know if we anticipated this reaction or the reaction you got, but it's a very new phenomenon for Iowans to be in a situation where fireworks are being lit off in a legal way between 4 and 10, and obviously the sale in Iowa proliferated the use in illegal times. We want to work with you. I can't tell the future. I don't know if legislation is going to change. I don't think that they're going to be outlawed at the state level. And so I think the availability of fireworks will continue on in the state of Iowa. And so I think we do have some discussions and some work to do. And we look forward to working with you in the workshop in August. And, hopefully we develop some community comfort level. And then on a personal note, I am a veteran too. And I will just say that it's not a monolithic group. Granted, some of the ordinance out there on the 4th of July sounds like real ordinance, but it impacts different veterans differently, depending on their experience and depending on what happened to them there and how they were when they came home. And so I do appreciate the sensitivity to veterans, but I do think you'll find veterans on both sides or on no sides of this issue. Thank you.
All right, we'll close the floor to additional comment. Any comment up here? Where should we start? Ms. Hensley?
I appreciate everybody coming here, and as the mayor indicated when he opened up the discussion here, we had talked about with it being fresh in our minds, and to be perfectly honest, I was so overwhelmed by the amount of emails that I received from all over the city. I mean, it wasn't just from Ward 3 that I represent, but it became clear very quickly that there were some issues that people were really quite concerned about the illegal use of fireworks. And, the difference with fireworks is that they're they intrude on everybody else's lives in a way that other illegal activity does not. And I think that's what's so upsetting. I had one call from a senior citizen, elderly senior citizen, that was in tears. And I'll tell you what, in my 24 years, I have never had a citizen call in tears about how upset she was with the noise, and she felt completely helpless to deal with it. So when you get those type of responses, yes, we need to do something about it. I don't know what the right answer is. As you know, those of you that have been watching this, I have been adamantly opposed. I didn't support it, but we do have an issue. We as local elected officials have not passed this law, but we are the ones that are having to deal with it. And to hear elected officials that were responsible for passing the law saying, no problems, it worked fine, I disagree. I'd be happy to share all my emails. I've got pictures. The question I ask with the company, you know, we as a city, we have a very tight budget. But I learned that fireworks have been set off on trails. I learned that fireworks have been set off in some of our new splash pools, burning them. I learned that fireworks have been set off on tennis courts. None of that's legal. And who's going to pay for the damage? I want to know who's going to pay for the damage when we're already so strapped for funds for our parks, and now we have to go back and pay for that. I've gotten pictures from individuals. I was going to show them, but there were some other good pictures. There was one intersection over on the south side, Southwest 7th and Deal. You couldn't even drive through it. There was so much debris left from the fireworks. So it has not worked. We can limit the use, and we need to figure out and have discussion as to how best to limit that use. And that's a huge hill for the police. They can't possibly get out there and respond to all of those. So as I look at having the workshop on the 24th or in August, whenever it is, I really hope that we focus on enforcement.
Linda?
I would like to say, I've received countless phone calls and emails from people who object to fireworks. I want to share with you what happens when fireworks are lit off. And this came to me from a woman who says she has lived in her home for 60 years. So I'm assuming that she's a senior citizen. And she called me and she said, you know, when they set off these fireworks, there's chunks of concrete that come off. This is what comes down after the fireworks. This is what broke out her garage windows. Now, there wasn't a neighbor around that came over and said, gee, I'm responsible. I broke out your window. Now, this elderly woman has to have somebody come and replace her garage window, probably $100 that she didn't cause. But here it is, and they're heavy. They're chunks of, I don't know what they are, but this is what came down from the sky and broke out her windows. And she had a whole yard full of them. This is what she collected and gave to me, but I'm hearing from people all over the city that are saying, it's in my yard, my mower is going to hit this, there's damage done to property, and I think that we have a responsibility when people live in our city that we can assure them that they're going to be safe. I don't think this should come down from the sky and knock out somebody's windows. So I'm opposed to it. I was opposed to it when it passed, and I'm going to ask that we just ban fireworks. That would be my desire. I understand those that like the fireworks, but I have not heard. I've had one email from someone who said, gee, this was great. I really loved it. I've had calls more from people that are dealing with this. Not only the noise, but the debris that comes down when it hits the ground and hits their windows and breaks. This is, I'm sure we've had cars that have been damaged, homes that have been damaged. I mean, these are hitting our roofs.
Never seen anything like that in a firework ever, unless a man made that. And you can probably ask these folks that sell it. Typically, that never is in a firework.
I have no idea, but this came down. You can tell it's been burnt. And it broke out a garage window.
But you know what I'm thinking happened, and because you could see it in some of the emails, I think that what happened was because they were legalized for supposedly for the 4 to 10 o'clock, people are going out and purchasing larger fireworks that have more potential for damage and shooting those off, and they're going way beyond what was the approved list that was acted on at the state.
I don't doubt what this homeowner who's lived in a house for 60 years is telling me.
You can't buy the $3,000.
Okay.
But you go to Missouri.
Mr. Coleman?
Just thank you, Mayor, and thank you for everybody that's coming out, and in particular, thanks and our honor to the veterans that are here. I think our first speaker's husband is he here? He's not here.
Oh, he might be.
And I think all of us share the concern that we're living in an environment, and did for several days over the 4th of July, when it just wasn't it wasn't respectful of everybody in our neighborhoods. I'm one that voted for it a month or so ago, and I do want to put that into context because it's really important. The state made it legal. My math shows 1,488 hours in Des Moines. 4 of us voted to make it illegal for 1,482 of those hours. It was allowed for a small window of what the state did because we all shared some concern. It's pretty clear that a lot of people in the city think that that strategy did not work. And maybe we'll come to the conclusion, after getting lots of input over the next couple weeks and months from our police and fire department, that that's true. But one of the things that concerns me is saying, let's ban it in Des Moines, is not good enough because we don't have an enforcement mechanism that's going to make that real. I would say 90 to 95% of the comments I've received that are negative about fireworks either came before the ban, before the legal period started, or refer to times before or after the legal period, which makes me think the ban isn't stopping anybody from lighting off fireworks. The penalty that we established didn't work. I think the chief would say we didn't issue any citations, 0 citations on that. And you know, the chief and I had a short exchange. What calls do you wish I wouldn't have gone on? What do you wish I wouldn't have gone? What woman that was calling about domestic abuse, or what robbery do we not show up to deal with this? I think we need to think carefully before we take the next steps as to how will we enforce the rules that we set. Or the truth is, everybody in this city will know that the rules are hollow and they don't have to worry about enforcement of it. And until we can figure that out, it's all going to be talk. We can say, well, we did what was necessary to protect our reputations at this table, but we aren't protecting the citizens if that's what we want to do. And so I think we need to figure this out. I mentioned to some of my colleagues today, if police action and that kind of, enforcement is not realistic, it's too hard to nail a specific person when they show up to a yard, whatever it might be, maybe we need to look at zoning regulations or other things where it is a violation of their property. And I don't know what would be legal or what isn't legal, but I think there's lots of ways where we could rethink this in a way that made enforcement more realistic, or I think that it's going to continue to grow. I was in Des Moines from 4 to 10. I drove around Beaverdale. Some of the people here are from Beaverdale. It was shockingly disturbing, the amount of smoke that was there. And somehow we have to deal with that for our neighbors that can't live in that environment. Is creating an all-out ban the right way to do that? I don't know how we would enforce that and have any other results than what we had this year during the ban up until 4 p.m. and after 10 p.m. on the 4th of July. I haven't heard anybody say the 3rd of July in the evening, the daytime during the 4th of July worked just great. It didn't work great then, and we had a ban. We got to figure out a different way.
Anybody else?
Has anybody talked to anybody in Baxter about any kind of
air quality concerns or noise complaints or anything like that.
Density.
Yeah.
Baxter was allowed to shoot whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted.
Mr. Moore.
There was no regulation.
I haven't.
In Baxter. But is anybody?
Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mayor.
This is just a question. I'm curious.
Well, we'll look forward to your comments and hopefully an extended letter or dissertation on that at our workshop. Well, we haven't decided yet, I don't think, Mr. Manager, but we'll post it, so, okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Everybody up here heard and saw what was going on not only the 4th, but the 3rd, the 2nd, the 1st, the last day of June, the 5th of July. The only difference, real difference, was on July 4th, there was 0 breeze, wind, whatever you want to call it. So the smoke all hung in the air. And I was up at 3 in the morning, looked out the window, and I thought something was on fire and went outside and realized what it was. We can't control that. And like I said, when we passed this ordinance, we were dealt a bad hand by the state of Iowa. We cannot ban the sales. And I will guarantee you what you've seen this year is the results of availability. I've talked to quite a few people and said they never went to Missouri or wherever to buy fireworks, but they could go out to Altoona or Grimes and buy them, and they did. And I think that's what we've seen. I'm glad that this entire council agreed to revisit this in August, which we're planning on doing. But even if we do an all-out ban, you're not going to see anything different, people. And one thing I'm going to offer to you is we had a 6-hour window when it was under control. We didn't need enforcement during those 6 hours because they were legal. As for the veterans, my son's a Marine. And I've heard from veterans, and I don't like what I'm hearing from them. I've heard from the animal lovers, and I don't like what I'm hearing from them. But your true problem is with the state of Iowa, not the city of Des Moines. A lot of what I've heard tonight and seen tonight is very disturbing. I'm going to be talking a little bit later at the end of the agenda. One thing I've heard is it sounds like there aren't enough police officers out there, and we're going to talk a little bit about that at the end of the night tonight. But thank you, everybody that's, we've gotten a huge amount of emails. I've gotten phone calls. The vast majority are opposed to fireworks. Have had some people that are for the fireworks, and it'll all be taken into consideration. But if you want a true ban on fireworks, you've got to get hold of legislators and talk them into reversing what they did this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm just not going to rehash what was said here. I think the two key points here is almost everything that you heard was illegal shooting. It's been that way since I've lived here all my life. The problem, as Councilman Coleman has identified, is enforcement. We can put as many restrictions out there. We could actually have an all-out ban. But in my view, and in my years of living here in Des Moines, I would surmise that about 65 to 70% of the people that were shooting fireworks during the legal period of 4 to 10 would have shot them off if it was banned. They're just, it's ingrained in a lot of people, and I think the reason that they became emboldened was because the state gave them all that opportunity. I'm going to be very interested in seeing how we move in the August time frame on this. I think we have to take into account what we do for the police department in terms of trying to get enforcement, and we have to take a look at our neighbors and make sure our neighbors do not lose the quality of life that they pay taxes for in our communities. So I hope everybody takes advantage of that workshop, and I'll be very interested in seeing how we turn out on that.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I echo a lot of my colleagues' comments. I've always been a proponent of allowing fireworks. Obviously, people didn't follow the rules like was set out to. We had, and I spoke with the chief, 2,400 calls without fireworks on July 3rd. 2,400 calls, plus the fireworks calls. There's no way to enforce fireworks, depending on how much we're going to take of our budget and have a fireworks police from, well, next year it'll be on a Wednesday, so everyone will celebrate starting Friday, so now we'll get 6 more days of it next year. Ramona said it best, I think. Passing an ordinance we can't enforce. And from the very beginning, that's what I said. We have to come up with something that's sustainable for all of us. Our community, for everyone to live, you know, have some education about it. You know, 4 to 10 was a short window, but it was a window that was given to our residents, and a lot of them took advantage of it. Obviously, there is citizens that didn't like it, but obviously there's a lot of citizens that did like it because you've seen them all. You looked everywhere in your neighborhood, and there probably wasn't one neighborhood in the city of Des Moines that you couldn't see fireworks. That tells me that there's a lot of residents that wanted to light fireworks off. And that's something that we all have got to come to terms with. I don't know what the answer is. I'll be interested to see what my colleagues think that we can do and how much resources we're going to put towards enforcement, because that's what it's going to take. We're either going to say it can be legal the weekend before and the 3rd and the 4th, or we're going to say we're going to ban them and we're going to enforce them, and we're going to pay lots of people double time and overtime to go in and enforce it. And that's going to affect the city budget. So those are going to be the choices that we have. There's no other choices other than that. You know, we can work on some zoning and maybe do some things like that, and we can work with our legal team, but we've got to figure out a happy medium that we can all live with, and I want to do that. You know, my intention of the ordinance was never to upset everyone. Obviously, I knew everyone wouldn't be happy with it, but, you know, and it was the first year. It was the newness that people can go up the street and buy a big mortar and shoot it off. And sometimes a lot of them did that when they came home from the bar at 2 o'clock in the morning. And that was a big problem. That right there irritates me when people are shooting them off at 1, 2, 3 in the morning. You're not being sensible to your neighbor. You know, a lot of folks, you know, enjoyed it. And I did have people tell me, yeah, we enjoyed it. But I'll be interested to see what our conversation leads to, and hopefully we can work together. I like the idea of doing some education. We didn't have any tents that says where you could and couldn't set them off, so they didn't know they couldn't set it off next to an elderly. You know, you had to be 100 or 200 yards away from it. We didn't have any tents set up, so we didn't have any type of education of when we can and can't do it in the city of Des Moines. So a lot of the people that bought them had no idea. Hey, I can buy them in Windsor Heights. I'm going to go home and light them off. So we've got a lot of work to do, and the problem's not going away. As long as the state keeps them legal, people are going to buy them, and they are not going to put them in their closet. They're going to light them, and we're going to have to figure out how we're going to stop that, if that's what we're going to do. But the problem's not going away. It generated $1.1 million in sales tax revenue for the state of Iowa. With the economic deficit that the state's in right now, I doubt if the people at the Golden Dome are going to outlaw them this coming January. We're going to have to deal with it. But the problem is, when you can buy them, they're going to use them. And we're going to have to figure out how we're all going to live together and be able to use them and educate some people and be good neighbors.
Okay. I just want to conclude it sort of interesting that a friend of mine, like some of the rest of you, is a veteran, a Vietnam veteran, and he wrote to me and said, the Des Moines fireworks ordinance is worthless. He says, if it had been enforced, the police would have made a fortune just in my neighborhood. He said, called the police 3 times. The ordinance is not a deterrent. Asked if I wanted to file a formal complaint. Never told if a formal complaint is confidential. Last thing I want is the police to wedge me or the city ordinance, quite frankly, to wedge an individual between their responsibility to enforce the law and a hostile neighbor who willingly and frequently breaks the law. He said, if you want, quote me on that, so I am. But a lot of the people don't speak up because of that, because they have some sort of fear of what's going to happen. I think we have to be very careful as we have our discussion in August where we want to go with fireworks. It's pretty clear where, I've been pretty clear, or should I say, where I stand on it from day one, being a veteran myself. So I think that we ought to have a motion to receive and file all comments.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
And let's have a vote and move on. I do appreciate everybody from every perspective for coming down tonight and standing up and saying what you needed to say. Mr. Coleman?
7 yes.
Thank you for attending.
All right, let's quickly move on. From Kathleen Kelly of 5175 Northeast 38th Street to speak regarding annexation of property into Des Moines without a water hookup. Kathleen? Is Kathleen here?
Yes.
Okay. You just didn't look like Kathleen, so I'm sorry. Okay. All right.
Mayor County, members of the City Council, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Lester. My name is Bob DeBlasi, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Ms. Kathleen Kelly. Ms. Kelly lives at 5175 East 38th Street in Des Moines. Her property was subject to the involuntary annexation, which occurred between June of 1998 and was finalized in June of 2009. During that period of time, a lot of things changed. However, what didn't change was that Ms. Kelly was never afforded the opportunity to have city water. She is here today to ask the City Council to respectfully consider formally assisting her in the cost of obtaining city water from the Des Moines Water Works. During the time of the involuntary annexation, Ms. Kelly's property tax increased. However, she still, to this day, doesn't have city water, doesn't have city sewer, doesn't have city lights. Ms. Kelly acknowledges that the involuntary annexation plan indicated that those services would be provided through development in the area as it occurred. To date, there has absolutely been no development on East 38th Street since the involuntary annexation. Any development that occurred on East 38th Street or on East 46th Street, which was part of the involuntary annexation, occurred prior to the annexation being officially acknowledged by the courts. In approximately 2002, the city expended over $173,000 to extend the water line from Broadway on East 46th Street to the Greater Des Moines softball complex. The question is, how much did the residents on East 46th Street have to pay for the extension? I know that residents have to pay extension from the street to their home. The question is, did those residents have to pay to have the water line extended? Or did the city, in its $173,000 plus, take care of that? Additionally, in 2002, the water main was extended on East 38th Street. However, not every resident on East 38th Street was given the opportunity. Specifically, the water main extended to 5061 East 38th Street, which is 2 homes south of Miss Kelly's. When she asked, how did this happen? Why weren't we given the opportunity to have water? She was told by the Des Moines Water Works that they don't have to explain to her why they stopped. They also don't have to explain who made the decision to stop it. And respectfully, Ms. Kelly asked the City Council, where were you in this process?
Nowhere.
You annexed our street, yet you were not part of the process when they extended the water main? Ms. Kelly was not afforded the same opportunity as the other residents, and her options now are as follows. Pay for the extension yourself or wait for future development. When Ms. Kelly has sought out answers from the city, the responses are, we have no control over the waterworks. Perhaps remaining neighbors can band together and we could lower the cost that way, or wait for future development. Those responses are disappointing, and they're not really flattering for a city that annexed you. Because where is the plan to develop East 38th Street? We are now 9 years post-annexation. There's been absolutely no development there on East 38th Street. May I continue to speak?
Well, can you wrap it up in a minute or so?
Well, I would say this, that in 2000, I would say this, the current existing structure between the Des Moines Waterworks and the City Council clearly doesn't work. Okay. And unfortunately, it places a significant financial burden on Ms. Kelly and others similarly situated, because they are the ones that serve as the developer. Your development plan talks about developing single-family homes, multiple-family homes, commercial development, parks, and trails in this area. And again, where's the plan to do any of that on East 38th Street? So to ask to wait until development occurs only increases the amount of money she will have to expend to have city water. In 2014, the Des Moines Waterworks gave her a preliminary estimate that it would cost roughly $18,000 and some change to run the main 600 feet from the house, 2 houses to the south, to her home. Additionally, it will cost another approximately $8,000 to $10,000 to run the line from the street to the home. That's approximately $28,000 that she would have to expend to get city water. So in closing, because my time is up, I would just say this. In your development plan, the city says and closes with, once annexed, these citizens receive the rights and privileges of every resident of the municipality. Ms. Kelly does not feel that way. She feels like she has received disparate treatment because others got water at a significantly lower rate. She was never notified by anyone in the city, the waterworks, or the neighborhood. What the neighborhood captain that the waterworks requires was told was get half of the neighbors to sign on to have water and we'll do it. Once he had 14 people, he quit asking. They paid, the neighborhood captain paid $2,000 to the city of Des Moines, to the city waterworks to have the line extended. He further paid a private company $2,600 to have the line run from the street to the home. So $4,600. Others said they paid approximately $5,000 to $7,000. Now, as time has passed, development hasn't occurred, the costs keep going up, and my last conversation with the Des Moines Water Works was, I have to redo the bid to see what's changed since 2014, and it may increase. So what we ask, Ms. Kelly is asking you as a city council, is to respectfully consider assisting her with the cost of obtaining city water, or in the alternative, to establish a meeting with representatives from the city so that we can come to an equitable resolution of this issue. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Bob. I will move to receive and file, but I'd like to have Scott make a couple of comments. And Scott and I have talked earlier today about what some of the possibilities are.
So if I can, Mayor.
Please.
As you might imagine, communication has gone out that we do not have programs that would typically pay for residents' water service. That is something, as he stated correctly, that would come about during development. And yes, that development is sporadic and sometimes unpredictable. And so the notion there is that sometimes projects go by homes that allow them to see the benefit of that investment and to be able to pay a much less cost than what appears to be in front of this resident here. One possibility that I would put out there is an opportunity for us to assist in the communication of the neighborhood with the idea that there is a water extension project that would be underway, and would there be interest in other parties to defray some of those costs and split those costs such that no one property owner would have to pay so much. I think the best that we could do, that I would offer up, is assisting in the lines of communication. I've spoken with community development on how we could go about doing that. That does seem like one thing we could do, but you are all aware of the constraints that we have budgetarily, and that for one, beyond the fact that you are not responsible for the budgets of the waterworks, there isn't just additional funds sitting around for all the other infrastructure projects that you have asked about to be included in the CIP. So I would offer up the communications chain is one option.
Can you have conversations with the director of Waterworks and the Waterworks board about possibly running it to the annexed area, or facilitate that conversation for us?
I can, but I will tell you that a lot of that has already occurred in the sense of my understanding is they have a connection fee out there. They've quoted prices to some of the residents, but I can sure provide more detail on that and reach out to them one more time.
I would like to see that. I would like to have a meeting and get the waterworks there and see what we can do. And if we could get a letter out to the property owners and say, because we're only talking, there's 17 parcels out there, and all of these people are on well water. And they're in an area where there's probably not going to be a lot of housing developed. In fact, across the street, I'm not sure that that's even Des Moines. I think some of that is still the county property over there. They sit on the east side of the road, which is Des Moines, right? So if there's something that we can do to convince Des Moines Waterworks to help us get water to these 17 property owners, I'd sure like to see them off well water.
Well, I would suggest that you also include the county in that meeting.
Okay.
I mean, they should be included because they might have some ability to provide some assistance and you know, some of the different programs that are out there. You know, maybe they could look at those and make some exceptions for them to tap into some of those.
I've talked to a couple of the county supervisors. I think it's right on the line where Steve Van Oort is the supervisor for that area.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? If not, could we have a motion to receive and file, or do we already have that?
I made a motion to receive and file, sir.
Seven yes.
All right, there is one extra item this evening, which was an item that was filed after 5 p.m. on Wednesday. It's a request from Councilmember Skip Moore to discuss the Des Moines Neighbors Resolution supporting a study to analyze the Des Moines Police Force and operations. Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to apologize for getting this in late. The police chief and I were going to discuss this on Wednesday, but due to an incident that was taking place, I didn't think it was appropriate to call him on Wednesday, so I called him on Thursday. And we both thought that this resolution had some merit, so I asked to put it on here. I assume everybody has seen it and read it. I want to thank Des Moines Neighbors for forwarding this to us. It's brought some aspects to light with me that I never thought about before. Right now, the police department is not operating at authorized strength, but the chief is working towards it, and probably this fall, it sounds like, or winter, we would be at authorized strength. I think one of the problems is that when you take into consideration that our population is growing and growing fast, is that authorized strength the proper authorized strength, or should it be more? You know, we've heard it tonight. One of our problems with fireworks is enforcement. We just don't have the police officers to enforce everything that's going on. This resolution talks about the number of homicides, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in Des Moines that would agree we don't have the proper amount of police officers on the streets that we should have. This is the kind of resolution that I like to see come through our neighborhoods. I'm glad they're bringing this to our attention. I agree with their last paragraph in here that they support an impartial study to analyze the police force and operations needed for the city today and will need in the coming decades for a city our geographic size. With that, I'll wait until we hear from Chief Wenger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, members of the council, Dana Wenger, Chief of Police. When I got this resolution, obviously I looked through it, you know, with a fine-tooth comb, trying to figure out what the motive is. If it's just a staff study, that's very simple to do. In fact, we probably have the resources within the city to do that, you know, at no cost to the taxpayers. But there's some things in the resolution, some that aren't necessarily accurate, and some things that that I don't agree with. The first one being, there's a part of the resolution is that the police department has begun implementing community policing and a body camera program. The community policing started in 1984 with a program called Municipal Approach, and it's been going on for decades since. The body camera program is fully implemented and has been for over 6 months. Obviously, these items weren't discussed with me before the resolution was made. It's really not that big a deal to me. There is one part in here that I think is concerning, and I have a couple people in this room that will probably agree with me. In fact, I know they will, because we've had this discussion as an organization. There's a part in here that says the hiring practices for each graduating class must constantly keep up with the number of retirements. Okay, we're shorthanded right now. We know that. We had a class graduate in the middle of June. The following Monday, we had another class start of 10. That class will graduate the first week of August. October 20th is a projected start date for the next academy class. Let me explain how we got shorthanded. First of all, in the last year and a half, we've had 17 people leave our organization unexpectedly. Unexpected retirements, disabilities, some of them I asked to leave, and we had some tragedy in there. Secondly, the last full class that we ran, we had 28 openings at that time. We had a list of potential hirees, 40 people long, which is standard for our hiring process. And when we interviewed those candidates, we came down to 15 that we felt met the standards of the Des Moines Police Department and the expectations of the citizens we serve. So we weren't even able to fill just over half of those seats in that academy class. That part of the resolution, I don't agree with it, and quite frankly, I won't do it. I will not lower our standards just to fill empty seats in a roll call room. I have a patrol officer sitting behind you, I have a homicide detective out here who depend on capable, competent employees to be there for them, you know, in those tough times. We have to depend on each other. So that's one reason we're short, is because I refuse to hire substandard candidates for our police department. Through this last recruiting process, we had over 600 people in it, so we're hoping to get a very good list. So as Mr. Moore indicated, in that fall class, as we get into winter and they graduate, we're hoping to be closer to authorized strength. But right now, we're not close. With the officers in the FTO, if you don't count those, you don't count the officers in the academy now and the people we hope to hire in the fall, we're about 30 people down, and we feel that. But I'm not inclined to lower our standards just to fill empty seats. And I think these two gentlemen in this room would agree with that sentiment. So if this is simply a staff study, I'm all for it, and I think there are available resources and you know, within the city to pull that off. If this is having a third party come in and dictate the operations of the police department, I'm not in support of that either. That's what you pay me for, to determine the scope and priority of my work under the direction of Mr. Sanders. It's a process that we're all involved in, including our neighbors, our neighborhood associations, and the people living in Des Moines. So I'm not opposed to this resolution. There are some things in here that need to be cleaned up a little bit, and I think that can be done collectively through some conversations, and I'm here to take any questions.
Thank you, Mayor. And Skip, I did have a chance, as I'm sure you did, to talk to a couple members of our police department, some of the union officials. Some of them are people I've known my whole life, and I respect them a great deal. I appreciate the way that you finished your comments, because the message I gave to them was, go see the chief. I think for our police department to work, and I would include this in the fire department as well, there is a certain environment and climate that I'm not used to and I've never worked in. And it's that command and control and respecting your command. And I think for us to commit to our citizens that we're providing a police force that serves their needs, we have to respect that command and control system. And so I appreciate it. I feel like my job when it comes to the police department personnel issues are to work through the city manager and him work with the police chief. And if we aren't meeting our goals of the council and we don't have confidence they can make those changes, then we make changes to personnel. That's not a great thing to hear, Chief. I'm sorry to say that, but that's what we do and what we're hired to do. And so I want to respect that. I will also say that there's no doubt that the message that was shared with Des Moines neighbors, that I trust was accurate and a complete picture, is concerning to me and others. We want as many police officers on the street as we can get, and we should be doing what we can as a council to arm the police department with the quality personnel that they need. With that, I have to tell you, I voted no on the budget this year and cited this very issue when I voted no. We can't keep funding luxuries and not do what the citizens of Des Moines need and want. And I shared it with the manager. We voted on it a couple weeks after there was a shooting in Beaverdale. I ranted to the manager at some length. And in the weeks that followed, we've overwhelmed our homicide detectives with problems. I pulled up the letter that we all received from the city manager with the new positions that we funded. I don't, you might remember, but I think there were 18. When I say that we funded it the city. I own it too. I didn't vote for it. But here's a case where our police department, our firefighters have been in this world, some in the last couple of years, have been asking for more employees, but we added a plumbing inspector, mechanical inspector, a zoning inspector, a traffic engineer, an equity coordinator, an open records request manager, a data evidence management, that is a police department position, human resource assistant, civil engineer, senior construction inspector, executive assistant, administrative assistant, neighborhood inspector, contract sales attorney, transportation planner. We raised taxes to do that, with the manager telling us that if we do this year, we're going to have to look at a tax increase next year that is many times what we did last year. It doesn't look like we're going to have the sales tax by the beginning of the next year. We're not going to sell the Y site to pay for the new municipal service center. We got problems stacking up, and we did all these things with a tax increase that is not what the police department came to you and me and probably others and asked for. And until we can say no to the luxuries and do what is necessary, we're going to continue to have police officers that are worried about their safety, and we need to do something about it, and in short order. The mistake is being, as I said, it's our job to affect the command and control and to make the decisions that our citizens have confidence in. Every neighborhood leader that voted for this resolution said this council made a mistake in the current budget, because we didn't fund one, and that's what they asked for a month ago at their meeting.
Mr. Coleman,
I'd like the manager, please, to make a comment on that.
I think the chief and I may be on the same message, so I'll let him deliver it.
Yeah, the shortage that we're seeing now, so we have an authorized strength of 373. And we're nowhere close to that. We're 30 down. So there's a difference between what we have on the street now, and if we can get close to our authorized strength, that would bring 30 additional bodies into play. So I don't want the confusion to be today's numbers on the street. We have budgeted numbers for 373. It's just a matter of getting those folks hired and on board and up to speed. So you know, the staff study. You can't go on today's number because our authorized strength is 373. When we get close to that, we'll never be spot on 373 because it takes a long time to vet out candidates and get them hired and get them up to speed. We never have been, we never will be. But if we can get, you know, 365, 368, that puts us in a comfort zone operationally. But right now, just due to some unforeseen circumstances, we're not anywhere close to that. So that's the difference.
Well, and the other thing that to your point earlier, you are not going to just put people on the street. You want them qualified. You want people who are going to support each and every one of these people and not just hire people and put them on the street. You have the ability, if they're there, to put another 30 plus people on the street with a budget that you have in place. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
And if I could, Mayor, just for the record as well, I really appreciate the plan that the chief has in front of us. It is to get fully staffed to the full authorization with the great talent, to see how well that performs, and then make a request, even if necessary at that point, for additional resources. Again, for the record, there was not a request to increase the authorized strength in this past year's budget. So there was no decision made, don't hire cops, hire the other individuals that are on your list. That was never a decision that was needed to be made. The first objective of the chief, and I support this, is to get fully strength first with talent. And so that's the first step.
Okay, Christine and then Bill.
You know, Chief, when this item came up on the agenda, I immediately called you and wanted to visit with you because I really wanted to get your input. So I really appreciate your comments here tonight because that really helps me. And I want to go back to the comment made about Des Moines neighbors passing this resolution. I think anytime we get a resolution from Des Moines neighbors, because Chris, you're talking about this being the intent of all of the neighborhood associations. I did checking to see how many people were at that neighborhood meeting. There weren't even 10. And you find out that some people have a vote even though they're voting as an individual, not as a neighborhood association. So anytime we get a resolution from Des Moines neighbors, I really think that they need to include with the resolution who was there and what type of membership they have. Because if you've got 10 people voting on a resolution like this, and we all know why this resolution was brought forward. It was brought forward 10 years ago, and it was brought forward by the union leader. And I've got the email here where he requested to